The easiest way to show you how to change these brake pads is by pulling the caliper off. But what's cool about these is you don't actually have to do that to change these brake pads. They're designed to be replaced with the caliper on. But the easiest way to work it out is if you have a look here, there's 4 pads in here. There's 1, 2 in the bottom area here, and there's 2 up the top here. And if you turn around the caliper, you'll see that there's little protrusions here which stop the brake caliper pad actually falling out. So they slot in from the top here, and these springs hold tension, hold downward pressure on these, so it just kind of holds them in place. Now what holds them in there is this spring here, right, wraps around this pin, and if you remove or push the spring down and away so that it moves out of the groove that's in this pin, you can simply pull these pins out by hand. So all I simply do is I just push it down and then away, and that little pin, right, you find you can rotate it and you can pull it out. Then you pull out the wire clip, and with a pair of pliers you just simply reach in and you pull out those pads. Right? Really simple. And to replace those pads, you just simply drop in a new set, right, and replace the spring and the pin, and voila, you've got a new set of pads fitted to the motorcycle. There you go. Now putting the pads in to replace them is simply the reverse of the removal. You just drop them down so they touch the bottom of the caliper. You know, make sure everything's nice and clean when you do it, but they just drop down, and all we simply do now is we need to put the spring in, which holds the pressure or downward pressure on those pads, keeps them in place, and slot in the pin that holds the spring in place. And that's a pretty simple process. There you go. It took a couple of seconds to do that. Okay, now you know how you actually remove these pads. We showed you on the other side by removing the caliper. What I'll do is I'll show you how we pull these out with actually removing the caliper on this side. Now, a couple of tools you need a pointy nose pliers, you need a spreader here so you can push the pistons back in, and you also need a rag so you can give that pin a bit of a wipe, and I'll show you what I mean when we get to it. All I simply do, like the other side, is I just push that spring forward and down into the caliper. Right, a little bit awkward with the camera in place. It's actually easy without the camera, but I do that, and I slide the pin out. Right, so that pin pulls out. Right, you just make sure you get in there and grab it. Right. When you pull the pin out, the spring comes out, and then now you can remove the brake pads. All I simply do is use the squeezer, right, to squeeze the pistons back in so that when we put the new pads in, there's sufficient space for them in there. Right. So a little bit awkward, just the shape of it. Yeah, so you simply grab your old pads, right, you remove those, and you get your new pads. In this case, these nice Brembo SRs. Right, slide them in, make sure they go to the fully to the bottom, right, and the sintered area or the metallic area, not the backing plate, is towards the disc. Right, so you make sure they're all the way down. Sometimes they sit up a little bit, they're just on a little bit of an angle. Now, it's simply a matter of reversing everything else. Right, just putting a little spring in there, and that spring is what's going to hold these in place, and the pin is going to hold the spring in place. So, as I said, it's a little bit awkward trying to do it with the camera here, but I'll give it a run. We'll see how we go with it. Alright, just got to get that pin just started in that hole. Damn it, a little bit awkward. Alright, it's a lot easier when you do it without the camera, as I said. Alright, so not enough hands. Okay, push the pin forward, spring forward, sorry, and then slide the pin in. Right, and the one that you got to do, just got to make sure it's all the way in. That one's actually not going all the way in. And I just do that by. Now you can see that pin's all the way in, and the spring has retained it. And all you simply need to do then is squeeze the brake so that you put the pad back, the brake pads up against the disc, or you're going to have no brakes that first ride you do. So there you have it. Right, real simple. Let's do the other one. One thing thing I didn't mention before was just make sure that you give these pins a good wipe. I'd previously wiped that top one, but give them a good wipe the garbage off there so that it doesn't get stuck in there. All right, clean it up.